Hi, I'm Simon. Thanks for tuning into The Ordinary Filmmaker. If you're new here, click subscribe to receive notification of my latest videos so you won't miss any news, rumors, or tutorials. And all the links to everything I talk about in this video, including gear discussed, along with the Canon R5 contest giveaway details, can be found in the description down below, along with my affiliate links. So if you like supporting this channel and you're also looking at buying camera gear, well, consider my affiliate links for Amazon.com and B&H. And if you're in Canada, reach out to Patrick at Downtown Camera. Well, here we are, another week of a Q&A session, but I'm doing it a little differently today. It's actually Friday. I'm shooting it Friday evening. And the reason for that is, well, I just want to have a Saturday off. I want to take it easy. I want to relax, but I also want to try shooting it a little differently. Now, it is a little windy, so I'm hoping the Tascam does a really good job of not creating a lot of noise. But I'm also trying out this ND filter. I'm shooting with f1.2 right now with a shutter at 160, and hopefully that works out pretty good. And hopefully we don't get an awful lot of noise in the background. That's always a problem when you're shooting at this time of day, especially a mostly sunny day in September when weather really starts to turn south pretty quickly. And also, I'm shooting in 4K HQ. I want to see how far I can go shooting in 4K HQ. I've got Canon Connect down here so I can see how much time it's recording, and I'll keep an eye on that. I'm expecting maybe 40 minutes before it ends, but we'll know for sure. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll look pretty good. Oh, and I'm also shooting in C-Log, so this should be one of my best looking videos to date, shooting outside, but best laid plans and all that stuff. All right, so let's get to our first question. Our first question is from Lolita. Lolita asks, if someone bought an R5, what is one lens that you'd recommend? That's a very good question. It depends on what you're shooting. If you do a lot of run and gun stuff, family stuff, and you're looking for a general purpose lens, there's one of two lenses that I would look at. The 24 to 105 f4. That one it's weather sealed, as the R5 is weather sealed, so I think they go hand in hand very well together. It works very well in low light. But the 24 to 240, I really like that one because you've got the 10 times zoom on it. It isn't weather sealed, but if I was to choose between, if I was going to get the 24 to 105, I'd definitely get the f4, but if I wanted something a little bit, well, more varied in terms of zoom, I'd go to the 24 to 240, and I think that would be a really good lens. But if you like doing portraits, well, there's a couple of lenses depending on your budget. I love the 50 millimeter, whether it be the RF or the EF version, and I think the 85 millimeter is a really good lens to try out as well. So those are some of my suggestions if you're starting off with the R5, or if you're starting off with Canon. If you're already got a Canon camera though, then get the EF to RF adapter and you can bring those lenses over. Rumor Has It asks, as Magic Lantern has started working on the R5 and have a ROM dump, will you try it out if they release a working version? That really depends. I'd have to read the release notes, and depending on what's in the release notes, I might do it. The R5 isn't a cheap camera, and for me, it's the most expensive camera I've ever purchased, so I don't want to risk bricking the camera at the very worst. So it really depends on what they have in the release notes. Rumor has it. So at this point, I don't know too much about it. If they're already working on it, I think that's terrific. I think that's excellent. So hopefully we'll see something soon. And yeah, thanks for pointing that out, that they have a ROM dump already. Stop the FOMO asks, after the R5 giveaway, are you planning on using the Sony a7S III as your primary video camera? If not, which camera and why? You're making the assumption, Stop the FOMO, that I'm actually going to be giving away my R5. I have no intention of giving it away whatsoever. I love this camera. It greatly exceeds my expectations and what I was looking for in a replacement camera for the 70D. And I'm still learning how to get the best out of it. There's just so much more it gives me. I'm going to be giving away a brand new R5. However, that doesn't completely answer your question. As soon as I get the a7S III, I'm going to be shooting it with a good solid month. I'm not sure if, I think it'll probably be my primary studio camera, and then I'll just use the R5 for run and gun and personal stuff. But for most of the studio stuff, I'm just going to use the Sony a7S III. Just like I've used the R5 for a good solid month, it's the best way to really understand how the camera works, some of the issues, and even things on the R5 like overheating. It really takes a lot of use of this camera to really get an understanding of what the pitfalls are, and of course what are the benefits of the camera as well. Lady Lincoln says, this will seem so basic to many, but I'm a beginner, so here goes. I took photos on my EOS R5 and didn't format my memory card first. Now what? Have I ruined them? Thanks. No, you haven't. Most cameras, or sorry, not most cameras, most memory cards that you buy today already come pre-formatted. So, no. If for whatever reason the card wasn't formatted properly, the camera would have brought up a warning and let you know. However, here's my recommendation. This is what I consider our best practice. As soon as you get a memory card, take it to your PC, and what you want to do is you want to test it out first. You want to format it. If you're on a Mac, you want to use, if you're on a Windows machine, you want to use H2 test. And if you're on Mac, I think it's F3 write. And what that does is it writes to every block, it tests the card, makes sure the speed's there, make sure it isn't a fake card, for example, because sometimes you can buy a 128 gig card on Amazon and you get it and it's actually only 16 gigs of usable space. So you got to watch out for those. And the camera would know, you just end up ruining your video. So if you've got fake cards, yes, you can have problems, but it's got nothing to do with formatting. Then once you format it on the computer, do a low-level format on the computer, then bring it into your camera and do a camera format there. And what I like to do every month or so, or when I've used the card a lot, I like to do a low-level format in the computer. And what that does is it helps prolong the life of it. I'm not going to get into the technical details, but if you format in the computer every now and then format in the camera, I like to generally format in the camera almost every day because I do a lot of shooting, and it just prolongs the life of your card. Ali asks, is 100 frames per second and 120 frames per second the same? My Canon R6 doesn't seem to have 120 frames per second, but does have 100 frames per second. Actually, it's got both. And what I can tell, Ali, from your question, is you're in a region of the world that uses PAL. And for whatever reason, PAL is divisible by 25, NTSC is divisible by 30, so you would not have access to 120 frames per second in PAL. If you want to shoot in 120 frames per second in the camera, you have to set it to NTSC, which is North American standard. I'm not going to get into the technical details of different frame rates or different regions. If you're shooting for YouTube, it shouldn't be much of an issue. But if you want to be able to get a hold of that 120 frames per second, you just have to set it to NTSC. But generally, what I like to do with the camera that I've got is I keep it in the region that I am, because sometimes I forget to change things over later, and then you can run into trouble. Our second question from Lolita: is the resolution of RF lenses that much of an improvement over EF lenses? Would an RF to EF adapter give similar results as an RF lens? Well, first of all, the adapter doesn't increase your capability. It just allows you to take that EF glass and bring it over to RF. So however capable the EF glass was, over to the RF camera using the adapter, it's not going to be any worse, and it's not necessarily going to be any better. Now, if the capabilities that you were getting on, let's say you were using a 70D, a really old camera, then yes, on the R5 you're going to get much better results because, well, the camera is capable of processing that incoming light so much better. But as far as RF glass, is it better? Well, it really depends. So I'll say yes, no, and maybe. Let's take a look at the lens I'm shooting with the EF 50mm. The RF version is about 33% more expensive, and it's actually quite a bit bigger, but it's so much more sharp. So there's a plus to the RF. If you look at the 24-105 f4 that I have, optically it's just so much better than the EF version. It's a little bit lighter and it's a little bit smaller. But other lenses, such as the 70-200, optically isn't that much better. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, and probably most professionals wouldn't really notice a difference unless they're pixel peeping. However, in terms of weight, it's 33% lighter and it's much smaller. It's like the 800. Basically, it's compactable, and that means it's so much easier to put in your travel gear. You can put more lenses in. It's got less weight. So there's more benefits to than just the optics. And so what I would say is that RF glass is generally better than EF glass, or is always better than EF glass. But it's either weight, it's either size, or it's optics, or it's a combination of the three. Jackson Law asks, I know that the L series lenses for RF lenses are great, but will you consider getting or testing the cheaper RF lenses like the 35mm f1.8 or the 85mm f2? Do you think that the cheaper lenses are still good for wedding video or photo? Yes, I definitely will. And the 800mm review that I just did, well, that's one of those more affordable lenses. And probably I'd say before the end of September, I'm hoping to have both those two lenses that you talked about and test them out. Now, in terms of quality, I really hate to point this out because it's very subjective, and I think one thing that's very important when you purchase a lens is no matter how good the lens is, it's more of the competency of the photographer. So if you really know your stuff, you know how to frame, you know how to set the ISO, you know shutter, you know all the tricks of the trade, you really understand that, you can make pretty well any glass or any camera work really, really well. But if you're looking at getting into wedding photography and this is your full-time gig, I'd probably be looking at spending a little bit extra and getting something really, really good. But if you're just helping out friends and family and they don't have the budget to afford a photographer, then yeah, you know, you can try some cheaper lenses. But just understand the pitfalls, the benefits, understand how technology such as variable ND filters can help you, especially if you're shooting outside. You really need to understand the capabilities you're trying to get out of the lenses and the scenes you're going to be shooting in. So I'm being very careful here to say yes and no because there's so many variables at play here. But you know, you ask any wedding photographer and they're going to tell you what the primary lenses that they like to use, like for example a 28 to 70, a 70 to 200, an 85mm, a 50mm. But you know, could you make a 24 to 105 work with an f4? Yeah, no, you need something. I would say this, you want a lens that can shoot pretty wide, like a 1.2, anything under 2, or like 2 and under. Like if it could shoot at 2, I think that would be pretty good. A lot of portraits that I shoot outside, I'm generally shooting at f2. If I go much below that, then yes, the R5 is incredible. The eyes are completely in focus, but then you're not completely separating the subject from the background. Even the cheeks start to fade into that depth of field. The ears are completely out of focus. And what I like to do is I like to completely separate the subject from the background. And that needs to be, I would say, almost 2.5 to 3, depending on how far away I am from the subject. So, really good question. Stephen asks, what sort of video do you do besides YouTube? Any passion projects you're currently working on? Yeah, I am. I don't know if you know, but I have a son. He's 6 years old. The whole reason I got into filmmaking and moved away from photography is back in 2013, we were going to have a son, and my wife said, you need to go spend some money on a video camera. I said, sure, honey, I get to spend money on camera gear. This is awesome. So I went out and I bought the 70D at the time, and I'd say it was probably one of the best cameras I could have gotten that I could have afforded at that time. And what I started doing is I would shoot clips, and that's mostly all I do today is I shoot a lot of clips. I bring them together into Final Cut and I edit them. And what I generally do is I create films that are about 90 minutes long, and they capture the life of our family from about November, 12 months ahead to the following November. And what I generally do is as I shoot them, I try to bring them in and edit them. So the stuff from January right now, from the one I'm doing this year, is already final. The audio's good, the editing is perfect, the effects are there, the color, everything is 100%. But the stuff from August and September, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Quite often I'll put it on the TV, we'll watch it, and as we're watching I make notes of what's wrong and I make changes. The color's not quite right, or it's still a little bit too saturated here, or that clip doesn't help tell the story, let's pull that out. And sometimes I start to condense things, so it's kind of like snow, like how a glacier forms. As the snow falls, you might have a foot of snow, but a few days later, that foot of snow turns into about 8 inches and 6 inches and 4 inches as the winter goes on because it compresses, compacts down. And that's what I do. I consider these to be a montage. And I really, really do enjoy it. It's taught me so much. I use a lot of good learnings from the TV show Top Gear and the Grand Tour. Those guys spend so much money on lighting, on camera gear, on crew. Like for every episode, they've got about 30 different people in their crew that's out filming. I'm not talking about back office staff, people that are out there filming with cameras. It's just utterly impressive, the level of effort they put into each TV show. So when you hear how much it costs to put that show together, I'm not really surprised. And even the audio, a lot of times the audio that they use in their shows, I'll purchase from iTunes, and put it in my videos. The only problem with that stuff though is legally I can't put it onto YouTube, because now I'm not just purchasing it for me and my family to listen to, it's worldwide distribution. So what I'm starting to use a little bit more of is the music that YouTube offers. And YouTube has a ton of free music that we're welcome and licensed to use for public or for publishing on YouTube. So that's really, really terrific, and I love doing that. But I'd say it's definitely a passion project, and it's what started this whole thing. And then I think it was around September, October last year, after watching a lot of camera conspiracies and watching Casey and his shoot. And Casey had a very simple, down-to-earth shooting styles or scenarios. He's either out walking the streets vlogging, or he's in his house shooting, and he doesn't have complex lighting or complex sets. It's all about him and what he brings to the video. And I said to myself, well, how hard can this be? And I'm going to get a camera next year one way or the other, and it would be really nice if I could have this channel help fund that, which it really has. So that's really my passion project, what I really enjoy doing. And you know, my family's the owner, so they're always really, really happy with what I produce. Paying clients aren't always happy, or they always want to make changes, or they want to do this, or they just shot new video and they want me to put in. It's different when you're doing it for friends and family, because anything you do is very much appreciated. So yeah, that's my passion project. And anything else? Oh, and also I do stuff for clients. I also take video, and sometimes stuff was shot on old cameras and the color balancing is completely out. Things are faded, and what I do is I try to bring things back. I digitally remaster it, so to speak. So that's something else that I do as well. But since COVID's hit, I really don't do a lot of paid gigs anymore other than this. And that's why you see me a whole lot more on YouTube, because I start work at 8, I finish at 4. I've got a whole 8 hours available to do stuff. So really good question. Thanks. The Village Mayor says, your channel's been very successful. I'm assuming due to working from home. When everyone eventually goes back to the office and the daily commute grind, do you think you'll scale down or try to maintain your daily videos? Okay, well, there's two things to unpack there. Will I scale down? And that's really got nothing to do with work. That really depends on how much blood, sweat, and tears I want to put into this. And do I feel I'm overworking myself? What I decided to do when I got back from vacation is I'm not going to shoot videos on my lunch breaks anymore or on my breaks unless it's something really, really breaking news. I'm going to use that time for walks. I'm going to use that for my health, for some exercise. And what I'm going to do is at 4 o'clock, I'll check the news. I'll see what's there. I'll put it into my script. I already have a script ready, and sort of the intro, the outro, and then I'll go ahead and record it at around 7 o'clock at night. Usually takes me about an hour to shoot and edit, unless I just can't get the words out. And then I have it come out the following morning at 7 a.m. Eastern time. And so that's what I'm doing now. In terms of what happens when I go back to my commute, well, I'm very fortunate. I could actually walk to work. It's only about 45 minutes. By bus, it's about 15 minutes. By car, it's about 15 minutes, 15 to 12 minutes. And I don't really know right now, but what I'm seeing is because office space is very expensive, and I've seen some floor plans, and it seems like my role might be one of those roles where I don't have a desk anymore. When I do want to go into the office, they have what they call these hoteling stations where I'd sit down and do work. So is there a need for me to actually go into the office? At home, I've got a 30-inch television, or not television, a 30-inch monitor. I've got all the gear that I need. I've got access to the bandwidth, and everybody now has been forced into using stuff like Microsoft Teams and Zoom and all that stuff. So everybody is primed to be able to use these services. And if you go into the boardroom now, the boardrooms don't have access to these services. So there's a very good chance that me working from home could very well be permanent. But then again, my role is very much in a consultancy type work. I'm an enterprise architect, and a lot of what I do is heads down work, or I'm consulting, or I'm doing workshops with people. So very good question. What about you? Let me know in the comment section down below. And everybody else, let me know, how has this changed your life? Are you now permanently working from home? Are you back in the office? I'm very curious to know. And I'm very curious to know how the wind sounds on here. I'm not getting a lot of wind buffeting me here. It's mostly up above, so you might hear the rustling of the leaves. But I'm suspecting it won't be too bad. I just won't be able to use any of the in-camera microphone audio from the R5. All right, let's get to our next question. Joey says, do you think that Canon will add all-I to the R6? It's a $2,500 camera. The R has it, which is only $1,800. Do we really need to pay $3,900 for a proper 4K camera with all-I? Yeah, we do. Right now we do, and here's my thoughts on this. Not a lot of people are putting up a stink over it. The 90D, well, the 80D and the 70D both had all-I, and the 90D didn't. And they brought a firmware update to give us back 24 frames per second, but all-I, it was gone. So I'm not hearing a lot of people making fuss over it. I'm hearing people getting upset over overheating, but no one's getting upset over, what are we talking about? Some woodworking next door, and it's got me knocked off the puck. Oh yeah, all-I. I know Canon says they're listening, and I know there's been rumors that it's coming, but I don't know. I really don't know. If it's really important to you, hold off on buying the camera until you hear more. But let's be fair to Canon. If we look over at Sony, they don't offer a lot of all-I either. A lot of what they do is long GOP or IPB. All-I is becoming more and more rare, and maybe that's why Canon's pulling it out, because they're saying, well, look, Sony isn't offering it, so why should we offer it? But I agree, it's absolutely ridiculous that the 80D had it, the 90D didn't, the EOS R had it, the RP didn't, the R5 has it? Well, yeah, $5,000. Well, sorry, I'm thinking Canadian. $4,000. Really, $4,000 we have to spend to get it? And then you've got the R6 where, I'm sorry, at that price point, it's ridiculous that it doesn't have it. And I don't know what they're thinking. It's things like this that get in the way of the customer experience. And I'm not talking about customer service. Customer experience is everything from the day you think of buying the camera to where you contact the retailer to purchase it, any support, unboxing, using it, and things like this, the record limits that Canon has in there, they really go against the user experience. And I wouldn't be surprised if, and I know people are just saying, I'm done with Canon because of things like this. Let's go to Sony, the A7S III. And I think the A7S III is a terrific camera, and I'm looking forward to using it. But I share your frustrations. I think it's silly, and the only way to have a chance of getting these things back is to create some noise. So when I see questions like yours, I'm more than happy to put them front and center so we can create a little bit of noise, but we need Canon to hear us. John Drummond asks, how much stock do you personally put into the rumor that Canon will kill the M series? While bifurcating their mirrorless lines into the APS-C, EF-M, and full-frame RF mounts is a result of recovering from yesterday's backward thinking. The in cameras remain a cash cow, especially in Asia. Ending them instead of maybe upscaling them or building a bridge to the RF system seems like it makes little business sense. Well, keep in mind, John, that these are rumors, and when it comes to rumors, I have no problem getting excited over them, like I did with the R5, but I rarely ever will make any purchasing decisions, especially future purchasing decisions on them. I'll help it get me primed for it, as I did with the R5, but Canon Rumors did put out this last one as a CR2. So I want to break this down a little bit. One of the things that Canon Rumors said is that they're working on a transition plan. Okay, there should be one. Because right now, if you buy into the EF system and you buy nothing but EF or EF-M mount glass, that only works on that system. You cannot migrate it to the RF, you cannot migrate it to the EF. But if you buy the EF to M adapter and you buy nothing but EF glass, well, that can eventually be migrated. And I don't know how this transition plan would work, because if you've got all these lenses, whether it's Canon's or Sigma's or somebody else's, you've got a 2 millimeter difference on the flange focal distance between the two mounts of 2 millimeters, and the difference in size between the M mount and the RF mount, it would be an engineering challenge to make an adapter to allow that to happen. So I have no idea what this transition plan is going to look like. And also, what do they mean by transition plan? Is this Canon's transition plan on how to move away from the EF-M system? because I can see the benefits of making things work with the RF mount. For the longest time, we had APS-C and we had full frame with the EF mount. And if you had a APS-C camera, a cropped Canon camera, then you could buy and use EFS glass and EF glass, and it was a happy, happy world. And I don't see any reason why we can't still do that with the RF system. But in terms of what's going to happen, I don't know. Here's what I would do. I'd be looking. These are my leading indicators. Do we get new bodies? So if Canon drops new bodies, then they're not planning on moving away from the M system anytime soon. But if we don't get any M bodies, let's say by March, and I'd almost expect something within September, October. So if we see nothing in September, October, then yeah, put that red flag up there. And if we don't hear anything by March, then definitely there's a potential red flag there. But it's really hard to say. I think it makes sense to migrate over to the system, but Canon's got to make affordable bodies. If they come out with, let's say, a high-end APS-C camera, which is what the rumors are pointing towards, that's not going to appeal to people that want to buy the Rebel or the KISS camera, the M6, the M5, the M50. It's not going to appeal to them at all. But if they come out with the high-end camera, then that means, okay, it's no longer a possibility will they produce APS-C cameras for the mount. It's just now, okay, so when is a low-end or low-budget version going to come out? But it's these M6, M5 cameras, they are small, and that is a benefit. Even though I don't like small cameras because of my hands, I can see the benefits of these cameras. They fit in purses, they fit in suitcases, they fit in your pocket, without the lens, of course. And they're very portable. I think they're great little cameras. You can produce great results with the M6 and the M5. Not everybody wants to spend $4,000, $3,000, or $2,000 on a camera and lens memory card combination. So yeah, I'm waiting to see, John, at this point. I think by March we'll have a much better idea. Ben says, I heard that the R6 and R5 pulse every now and then on autofocus. I'm wondering if they're using eye autofocus or just plain face tracking. Reason why I ask is the EOS R tends to hunt every now and then when using eye autofocus under very contrasty or low light situations. In face track mode, the EOS R doesn't hunt. I personally haven't seen it. And if you go back almost a month now, I shot some videos at night. I'm talking 11 o'clock at night, dark. And you can see the thumbnail, it shows everything as being dark. And I did shoot with C-Log, and it never missed autofocus once. Now the 50mm that I have, the EF, it's a little bit slow, so when I did the moving back and forth, it was a little slow, but it didn't miss. I've had some problems with my EF in the past, but I had problems with it on the 70D, and I believe it's the lens and not the body. I really lost my thought. What was it? This is happening twice. The wind is distracting me, and that's what it is. The wind is distracting me. Pulsing I haven't seen. I've seen wobbles in the edges when shooting at 15mm or 24mm, but I haven't seen any autofocus problems at all. And I gotta tell you, I'm actually very impressed with the AF on this camera. The fast processor, the AF, the IBIS, the low light performance, everything working well together. For me personally, in a month of owning it, shooting with it every day, I haven't had a problem. And what I'll say is, it's definitely better than the EOS R or any other Canon camera in the hybrid, mirrorless, or DSLR line yet that I've played around with. So if I do notice it, if I do hear anything about it, then I'll put it in one of my behind the scenes pieces in an upcoming video. Popcorn asks, do you think Atomos should come out with an 8K recorder? No. And here's why. It's not going to help. For 8K, to have 8K through HDMI, it has to be running, well, you need two things running HDMI. You need, of course, the Atomos to support HDMI 2.1, and the camera needs to support 2.1. Then, of course, the firmware and the software, Canon needs to be able to enable 8K through that HDMI. And at this point, Atomos only does 2.0, and I believe the R5 is only 2.0 as well. So you have to go to that HDMI 2.1 to be able to support those faster rates to be able to get 8K out over HDMI. But I'll say this, I've only shot 8K a few times, and even with my iMac Pro, that fast computer, I don't like editing with it. I'm pretty well shooting. Oh, I'm still recording. Okay, so 26, so I'm into the 30s at this point. I don't see there being any overheat warning. Sorry, I'm just curious to see. We're almost at the end and no overheat warning. That's absolutely fantastic. Okay, but so back to 8K. The amount of editing it takes, I absolutely have no interest in editing with it right now. I think maybe in 3 years when I get a faster computer, that might be something to try, but 4K HQ is my default almost all the time now, even for doing this stuff. Because the cool down times are much better and much faster, and my watch has died, but I think it's around the mid 60s here right now. So the camera cools down a whole lot quicker. So yeah, I don't think it's going to come anytime soon, to be honest. I might expect that coming to Sony more than anybody else, but no, or even Panasonic. And a second question from Popcorn. You say you film videos during your lunch break, but you film it in your house, so you're working from home. Or is your office close by? Well, this question is very similar to a previous question. I am working from home, but what I do now, Popcorn, is I've stopped producing videos on my breaks and my lunch break because I'm now using those. This is going to be quite revolutionary. I actually use my breaks for breaks. I get up out of my house, I go for a quick walk. I know the walks I take to make it take 10 minutes, and I do walks on my lunch, so I'm focusing on my health and well-being. And unless something really important comes out, I don't plan on producing videos. Now my office, which I don't think I'll be going there anytime soon, we're all working remotely at this point, is a 45-minute walk away. It's about 12 to 15 minutes driving, and the bus takes about 15 minutes or so, so I am pretty close and very fortunate that way. But I also moved here, where I live now, to be close to work. I've got the R6 and I've been tinkering a lot with C-Log. I found that I'm having a lot of difficulty editing footage since the codec is H.265. How's your experience with editing the R5 C-Log? And is there any way to improve the editing process with H.265 and C-Log? Well, first of all, I'll say that 4K is very demanding, and pretty well every camera that does 4K gives you the option of shooting in H.265. Now, last year when I was testing other cameras, I got 4K footage from the Sony a7 III and the Fuji X-T3, both in H.265. And my iMac, was it the iMac Pro at the time? Yeah, it was the iMac Pro. Handled it buttery smooth, no problem. But I wasn't trying log from either of those two cameras. On this Mac here, generally when I shoot with 4K HQ, it plays at normal speed. There's no stuttering. Things are pretty good. But C-Log, it stutters like crazy. It is slow. And the iMac Pro is not a cheap computer. They're $4,000 new or something hideous like that. And what I generally do is I don't render, and I just listen to my videos at twice the speed. And the one thing nice about Final Cut, even though the video may skip, the audio never does. So I don't worry about so much how my video looks. I listen to how it sounds. And then if I need to really, if I've got a transition and I'm being very careful with it, I'll create 2 simple cuts, and then I'll render just those clips so I can see how smooth things are. But yeah, C-Log is just terrible, and I'm shooting this in C-Log. So what I normally do is, like I said, is I just edit based on the audio, and then when I export, I do the rendering. Then I don't do, for my YouTube stuff, with Final Cut, rendering's turned off. I never have it on. For my personal stuff, like the videos I told you about, I always render. Because what I'll do is, after I've shot a few scenes and put them in Final Cut, I'll do an export, and then we'll watch it. And if you multiply that by the number of times I do it, having it already rendered does save a ton of time in exporting. And our last question is from JC Never Stops. What are your thoughts on using gyro information for post-stabilization that Sony offers? And would you say it's better or worse than IBIS? What Sony does with their Catalyst software is amazing. I think it's really, really good. It's terrific. However, keep in mind, any work that you say for post-processing adds time. There's 2 things here. First of all, the software is amazing. I think it's absolutely terrific. It beats Warp Stabilizer and even the stabilization that we have in Final Cut Pro. But what I always try to do is, whenever I'm filming, whether it be audio or video, I try to get it as perfect as I can, so that way it leaves very little for post, because anytime you leave something for post, you've got more cleanup to do. It takes more time, takes more effort, and I really try to avoid that. So even when I'm shooting, when I'm walking with my son, even though the R5 is very good with IBIS when I'm walking, I try to practice heel to toe because I want to reduce the amount of unstabilized video that I have so it's not distracting. You watch a lot of TV shows, you'll be surprised at how often the camera isn't stable, but it's stable enough that we don't notice and we focus on the subjects. So I think it's terrific software. If you're thinking about getting Sony just for that, it's something worth getting. The R5 has such good stabilization that it's not something I necessarily believe I need. The GH5 Panasonic does some really good stabilization as well, so not something you need. But you know, if you're with Sony, you know, get the software. It's absolutely terrific. It's top notch. I'm just shocked at how well it works. It's one of those things where you expect to see on a commercial, you buy it and the results are different, but no, the results are very good. So that brings us to an end of another Q&A session, and I'm looking down here, I'm still recording. So I've been recording for about 40 minutes. It's showing 14 minutes, and I stopped recording before at 26 minutes. So it's exactly 40 minutes. I'm going to go see if it's actually an overheat warning. Let's go take a look here and see what it says. Oh, my microphone. Still recording, good. Wow. Guys, you're not going to believe this. Am I in 4K HQ? I checked it. Okay, I'm shocked. There's no overheat warning on here, guys. The only thing I can think of is, I'm pretty sure I'm shooting in 4K HQ. What does it say down here? Yeah, okay. So I love this here, the Camera Connect. So right down at the bottom here, it says MP4 All-I 4KU fine. So fine means, I don't know why it says fine, but fine means I'm recording in 4K HQ. So the overheat warning isn't even on, and I'm over 40 minutes at this point. You know what? Hold on. Let me brace for this. 40 minutes, 4K HQ, and it's not overheating. We don't even have the warning. This is where I really wish my watch was working right now, because it died. I didn't charge it last night. All right, let's go forward again. This is dramatic. I really didn't expect I could record this long without it overheating, or at least getting the warning. So I'm at a bit of a loss for words here. So one thing I think is very much evident here with firmware 1.1, and this backs up what I've noticed in my studio. We're seeing much better cooldown times. We're seeing, and I think it's not so much that it's the cooldown times, it's what Canon's done with the ambient temperature sensor. So it is quite cool here, and there's a breeze, so it helps remove that heat from the camera. Last night when I was shooting my video on the 800mm, and watch that video, it's really, really incredible. I've fallen in love with that lens. Well, I couldn't speak. I spent 20 minutes recording in 4K HQ, and it was absolutely terrible. So I took a break, gave myself 20 minutes, came back, and it said 25 minutes, so I started recording again. Another 20 minutes, and I was terrible. So I walked away, went upstairs, took about an hour, rewrote the script a little bit, then came down and shot the whole thing. But what I noticed is when I got to about 30 minutes, it said I only had about 3 left. And because I'd shot basically the entire review, I brought it into the computer, I did all that editing, give myself a break, and then I went and shot the behind the scenes pieces. So I've noticed that the cooldown times are so much better. Before with 1.0, if you shot for 25 minutes, you pretty well needed to wait at least an hour, whereas now it seems to be more half an hour. And yeah, I'm still going now. I don't know if there's an overheat warning on there yet, but that's a bombshell. So that's really good news. So I think as we get into winter and the cooler seasons, I might not have to worry about overheat. But as you can hear, my neighbor's building something next door, and hopefully that's not going to be too loud here. I do apologize if there's any noise, but what I'm always constantly doing here, I'm trying different things out. I'm trying out the new ND filter that I purchased here, so I can record 1/60th of a second shutter, and I can record at f1.2. And I'm also recording in the wind, and it is quite windy here. I'd say these are out 30 to 40 km/h gusts of wind. I can hear the rustling of the leaves right now, and hopefully the Tascam, it has been pretty good in the past. And unless this is completely inaudible, which I don't think it is, I'm going to put this out there. So thanks for tuning in to The Ordinary Filmmaker. I very much do appreciate it. I love all the comments you guys give me. This is very much a community where we can come together. And I love you guys who expand upon some of the questions. So for example, when they asked about what lens would you get, and you disagree for whatever reason, or you just think, no, for this scenario, I really think you should look at this lens. I never take offense to that. I appreciate that you're providing more feedback to people, that you're commenting, you're contributing. I love criticism. I think it's a good thing. And even when it's not worded as nicely, I look at it for what it is. Even if it's not wrapped up very nicely, if it's something I can use to help improve my channel, I'll do that. Look at all the things I've improved over the last year. You've helped me change my audio. You've helped me change my lighting. And a lot of you pointed me and said, you really should look into ND filters. And I said, yes, 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 yes. Got to buy the R5, got to change the set. And as I did those things, and I earned a little bit more extra money again this month. So last month I brought in just over $1,000 on YouTube, probably about another $100 on affiliate links. I thought, okay, now that that money's locked in, I'm going to go ahead and spend a couple of $100 on UV filters or variable ND filters. So thanks so much for watching and having faith in me to follow me since the very beginning. I very much do appreciate it. But don't forget, if you'd like a chance to win the Canon EOS R5 full-frame mirrorless camera, subscribe to my channel. That's it. You don't have to jump through hoops. I do have more details in the description down below. I put out a video, and in that video it's got all the terms and conditions. Unfortunately, there are some age restrictions, and unfortunately, there are some locale restrictions as recommended by lawyers. So there's that. But thanks again for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. It's still recording, so I'm going to end it right now. We'll see you again soon.